Good afternoon. Welcome to the Peoria City Council study session for the budget. Would you please rise? Join us in a moment of silence and then a pledge of allegiance held, led by Mr. Rivera.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Barrett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Rivera.
Here.
Councilmember Ames.
Here.
Councilmember Patena.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Carlott. Here. And Councilmember Leone.
Here. The first item is the, oh no, we don't have the first item. You're up, sorry.
Nope, no problem. Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, Mayor, council members. We're here for the second of our scheduled budget discussions for the 2014 City of Peoria budget. We'll be continuing this evening with the departmental presentations that we began last night. As you will recall, we were in this room not that long ago, going through the department budgets and ended with the fire department. And we'll pick up tonight with Public Works and Utilities. One thing I'd mention before we get started, there was a question last night regarding the information that we were planning on providing in preparation for your discussion next week on utility rates. And I would notice you all received that just a few minutes ago, so you have it either inserted in your book or loose there in front of you, but I would commend that to you as reading material for the utility rate discussion that we're going to have at one of the sessions next week. So with that, I'll turn it over to Katie Gregory.
Thank you, Carl. Tonight we have 9 departments that are prepared to present for you, and it begins with Mr. Bill Mattingly, the Public Works and Utilities Director, and if you turn to page 751.
This has a lot of pieces.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to be here this afternoon to present to you the Public Works and Utilities Department budget. This logo indicates that the Public Works and Utilities Department is an accredited agency. I'm pleased to report, you may have seen a memo that we had some peer reviewers in last week who approved us for reaccreditation and found us to be 100% compliant in over 229 different areas. So we're very pleased that they granted that accreditation. The Public Works Utilities Department consists of 8 divisions: plant operations, field operations, water resources and environmental, facilities, fleet maintenance, solid waste, streets and storm drains, and transit. I'm going to present to you this evening what is a hold-the-line budget. There are a few items, and I'll talk to those when I get to those, but overall this is a hold-the-line budget. Starting with plant operations, this division is responsible for the operation and maintenance of our water treatment facilities. So that would include our 35 wells, our 2 water treatment plants, the Quintero Water Treatment Plant, the Greenway Water Treatment Plant, our water reclamation facilities, Jomax, Beardsley, and Butler. We're also a partner with the City of Glendale in the Pyramid Peak Water Treatment Plant. We have one-time addition to the Butler budget. We're proposing an evaluation of the existing Butler Water Reclamation Facility air scrubber system. This is the odor control system for the plant. The intent is to investigate alternatives to our current chemical feed system at the 99th and Northern Pump Station. What we do at that location is we feed a chemical called ferric chloride, and that mitigates odors not only at the pump station but at the plant. The problem is that particular chemical creates maintenance problems for us at the plant. It coats some of the materials there at the plant, and it's messy. Ferric chloride is iron, and it leaves a rust stain on things. So we're looking at alternatives to that, and that's what we'll be doing with this one-time budget request here. The next division is our field operations. They're responsible for the maintenance of our wells, reservoirs, and booster stations, also our water distribution pipelines, fire hydrants, and valves. They're also responsible for the wastewater collection system, the pump stations, the pipelines, the manholes, and they also do the utility marketing, what we call Blue State, the one call center. There are no proposed changes to this budget. Water Resources and Environmental is responsible for water resource planning, water conservation, solid waste recycling, education, and outreach. They're also responsible for environmental compliance, including the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Clean Water Act, stormwater quality, and air quality. We have one budget addition here, and this is for water resources, and particularly for CAP water. What's in this supplemental is $150,000 for ongoing costs, and that's based on increased costs that were identified last year in 2012 by the CAP board. The CAP board adopts a 2-year rate projection. They work on a calendar year basis. Obviously, we work on an alternative fiscal year basis starting in July. So the rates that they set for 2013 and 2014 are relevant for us. This is based on what they set for us in the last year's budget. However, we know that the CAP board is spending a lot of time looking at a number of factors that are causing them to have to look very carefully at their rates. The rates are going up. There's a number of things that are influencing their need to raise those rates, not the least of which they need to maintain sufficient reserves to be able to deal with the emergencies that come up. And last year we saw a substantial emergency where we had a canal breach that put a section of the canal out of service for a period of time. They need money to be able to react to those kinds of emergencies. Additionally, there's a number of factors that relate to the Navajo generating station. The Navajo generating station was purpose-built with the CAP canal and is the power supply for the CAP canal. They have enjoyed, as an owner, as a partial owner to that, the CAP, they receive revenue for sale of surplus power. In the last few years, they haven't enjoyed the same level of revenue because there's competition with low-cost energy from natural gas. So they're not receiving the revenues that they previously received. They use that revenue to help retire some of the debt service, so there's substantial pressures there. They had to dip into their reserves to pay for 2012 and 2013. Additionally, there's a number of other things that are happening relative to Navajo Generating Station. There are increased costs of operating the facility. There is pollution control requirements that the EPA has placed upon them to substantially upgrade their scrubbers. And so there's a lot of money being spent to upgrade those in the near future. In addition, the land lease that they have is about to expire. When that renews, when they renew that with the Navajo Indians, that's going to be an additional cost. And additionally, the source of fuel, coal, which is they get from the Navajo and Hopi reservations, the cost for that will likely go up when those agreements expire. So a number of things are coming that are forcing those rates to go up. The board, I know, even today was grappling with that. They were being briefed on this. And there are a few scenarios, there's at least 3 scenarios that have been floated that I'm aware of. We don't know precisely what the answer is going to be. We're going to watch this, see what unfolds. They have to adopt rates in June. They'll publish rates on a tentative basis before then, and then we'll make some adjustments of this accordingly.
If you want to know, the Finance and Audit Committee is going to meet April 18th at CAP. At that point in time, that subcommittee is supposed to pick one of the scenarios or some kind of a bits and pieces of each and make that recommendation to the board at the first Thursday of next month. And that's when they will pretty much figure out what they're going to do or how they're going to handle the shortfall. At that time, then you'll know exactly what it's going to cost us.
And obviously, we'll bring that information back and how it impacts the city of Peoria.
And you missed a real fun meeting all day today.
It was, I've looked at the briefings. There's just a tremendous amount of information to plow through.
But we should have certainty next month.
And just by way of just one other factor, because it's a calendar year, it's going to affect us for 6 months of our fiscal year 14, just the last half of fiscal year 14, so it's not the entire year.
Doesn't SRP have some of the same constraints, particularly that Navajo plant?
Counselor, SRP is a partner in that plant.
Right.
They enjoy that's part of their energy portfolio. I don't know
Not
how
water,
that factors
huh?
into their operation of
Okay.
their canal system. So you're not going to see the same impact there, but it may impact their power because they're a
Right.
power and water
They have to
utility, as
pump
you well
uphill
know.
too, yeah.
Actually, no, SRP is all downhill.
Is it all downhill? No uphill?
Yeah, their service
Isn't
area
quite
just
what they told
runs
us
south.
recently, but anyway, maybe.
So moving on to facilities. Facilities provides custodial services, building operation and maintenance, heating, cooling, and ventilation system repair and rehabilitation, and energy management. And energy management continues to be a focus for the department. Energy savings at our City Hall complex since 2008 have allowed us to mitigate rate increases over that same period of time. But we continue to look for more savings. Our newer buildings are LEED certified, and some are EPA Energy Star rated. We continue to look at energy savings. I'll talk about one on the next slide related to the IT building. There's some opportunities to save power there. In this last year, and we're going to continue to do this, we've been exploring a partnership with a private company to install solar panels at our water treatment facilities, whether it's a reclamation plant or the Greenwood water treatment plant. But we're looking for an agreement that gives us a good rate for power, at the same time allows us to use the solar panels. And as we look forward, ultimately with the Butler water treatment plant, we're going to be replacing our membranes. They need to be replaced every 5 to 7 years. The newest technology are much more energy efficient than the ones that we have in place now. So we expect to save some energy there when we employ that. There are several budget additions in the facilities area. These are all one-time. The first one is for various facility equipment replacement. This includes replacement of batteries for our power systems in the our uninterruptible power systems in our Development and Community Services building. This would include a server upgrade for our employee timekeeping system and some various custodial equipment replacement. The next,
This is a question. Yeah, John.
Bill, can you kind of go into a little detail on the equipment, the electronic equipment that you're looking for? Is any of this equipment, can it be housed centrally located in our IT department to where we don't have to buy additional servers?
Councilor Edwards, the intent here is to buy a server that would in fact be located in our IT data center. The current facility that we have right now, the current server, is little more than a PC, and it's locally operated in the facilities area. This really should be a networked system. It belongs in IT, in the data center. So this would be to give them the money that they need to buy the server, if in fact they don't have capacity on an existing server.
That was going to be my next question. Is there any capacity on an existing server that you can maybe just add that software to it versus buying a whole new server?
That would be our approach. We'll work with IT to figure out if that's feasible.
Thank you.
The Public Safety Administration building has a cooling tower. That facility is 10 years old and it needs to be refurbished. Likewise, the Fire Station number 3 has evaporative coolers that cool the garage, the apparatus bay, and those need to be replaced. Those are 22 years old, so it's time to replace those. And in the data center, in the IT building, there was an analysis that we did in the last 12 months that showed we could save energy and get a payback on this $29,000 in 5 years' time by making modifications to the cooling system there. And what that relates to is to direct the air to the units themselves, to the computers. The computers is what we're trying to cool. We're cooling the entire room, but if we direct the air to the computers, we can save substantial dollars there. So this one-time cost will pay for itself. Fleet maintenance, they're responsible for vehicle and equipment purchasing, vehicle maintenance and repair, fueling, including alternative fuels, and they have a vehicle wash facility, which we converted this last year to recycled water. There is one supplemental here. It actually is two components, two line items. One is motor vehicle repair and maintenance for $75,000. The other is for tires for $48,000 for the total of $123,000. The fleet services focuses on those things that they're good at, and they don't do the specialized work. We don't do body work in fleet. We don't do transmission repair. We don't do major engine overhaul. We had an asphalt milling machine I'll talk about later on that needed repairs. We send that out to the manufacturer to do those repairs. Likewise, we had a wastewater Vector truck that needed repairs. Again, we send those out for specialized repairs. We don't do those kinds of things in fleet. Those costs have gone up, and again, that's a $75,000 ongoing supplement there. We buy a lot of tires. When you get a flat on a police cruiser, we don't put a plug in it, we don't patch it, we buy a new one. That's the standard of the industry. So when you are replacing tires for the fleet that we have, our costs have gone up 18%, so we need another $48,000 on that line item. Our solid waste division provides commercial solid waste services, including multifamily, business and roll-off, residential trash services, curbside recycling services, household hazardous waste events. We hold 3 of those events per year. This last year, we did one in the north part of the city. That was a very successful event that we did there. We did it at one of the home centers up there. And we do bulk trash collection one time a year. There is one supplemental that we have here, and this relates to the Butler Water Reclamation Facility. The solid waste division provides services to the Butler Water Reclamation Facility. They haul 7 to 10 roll-off containers per day, 5 days a week, to the landfill. The Butler plant pays directly the landfill tipping fees, and they pay the solid waste division for the service to actually do the hauling. The Northwest Regional Landfill is cheaper than the City of Glendale landfill, which is pretty close by the MOC and the Butler plant, which is within a few miles of it. So it's more convenient to take it to Glendale than it is to go to Northwest Regional. However, the tipping fees at Glendale are $26.50 a ton, whereas they're $19 a ton at Northwest Regional. So as you look at the cost benefit to drive the longer distance to the regional landfill versus going to Glendale, it makes sense for these costs, which would be ultimately charged to the customer, Butler, to save money by sending more of the solids up to the Northwest Regional Landfill.
Mr. Rivera?
Mr. Mattingly, what are the savings with this new approach?
The savings amount to about $50,000 a year. And what we did, and the reason we even looked at this, is the costs have been increasing for the Butler's budget. And in fact, they were looking at cost pressures and needing to do a budget supplemental. So we looked at what our alternatives were, and we developed this as an alternative to doing a budget supplemental in the Butler budget. And this will be then absorbed in the Butler budget.
Good job in finding savings. So.
Streets and storm drain are responsible for our pavement maintenance, our signs and striping, our traffic signals, our street lights, and our storm drain system maintenance. There are 3 budget supplementals here. One is for a pavement management software. Our pavement management software is the tool that we use to prioritize our street maintenance to get the most valuable for our available budget. The current system we have is over 10 years old and is no longer supported by the vendor. So we need to replace that system. And we've worked very closely with our information technologies group to determine that that is in fact the choice. We looked at other alternatives. We do striping of our streets, and the cost of paint has gone up. And we've also added additional lane miles and The other thing we've added is we've added a lot of bike lanes. All of those get striped. So the cost for striping has gone up by $30,000. I mentioned the asphalt milling machine. The machine we have is 12 years old. It is European manufacture. I mentioned we had to send it out to be repaired earlier this year. It took a long time. It was out of service for a period of time. The 12-year-old machine is worn out and needs to be replaced. So we have a one-time cost to purchase a new one, and then the ongoing cost to replace it when it becomes time to replace that piece of equipment.
Ms. Carla?
Bill, in your performance measures, it says inspect all pavement on a 2-year cycle, percent completed year to date. And then for the past, for the past 3 years, it's only 45%. And your goal is actually, your target is only 50%. So you only want to achieve 50% of that goal of inspecting all of the roads within 2 years?
It's probably not well written. The cycle is 2 years. We want to. It's not artfully done. We want to do half of the streets every year is what it comes down to.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Mr. Edwards?
100% of 50%.
We'll reword that measure.
Bill, I had a question for you. 2 questions, actually. On page 791 for your pavement software.
I'm sorry, what page was that?
791.
791.
Can you describe, it says other professional services for 12.5? What is that?
So the other professional services, this software uses our geographical information system. It also relies on our maintenance management system, which is called Hanson, which is our asset management system. So the software that we select needs to be compatible and integrated with both of those others. So the other professional services is to migrate the data that we have, all of the inspection reports that we have, which reside in the asset management system, Hanson, and migrate that to the new software. Additionally, we populate the data. In other words, we transfer data, our assets, our roadways, and their geometry from the geographical information system into the new software. So this is the one-time cost to convert all that data.
Okay. And then the next question is the last line item for the computer hardware for 11.5. There's no description down below as to what that hardware is for.
Again, that would be a server, and that again would be housed in the IT department.
And the same thing, we're going to try to put it onto a server that's already existing. If not, then purchase one.
To the degree there's capacity, yes.
Okay, thank you.
The Transit Division provides Americans with Disabilities service. We also provide citywide dial-a-ride service, and we provide what we call Dial-a-Ride Plus, which transports our citizens to neighboring community hospitals. That would be the Thunderbird Hospital, the Arrowhead Hospital, and Boswell Hospital. We use a hybrid service delivery system in the city of Peoria, and that is we deliver trips that are closer into this city within a 5-mile radius. We will deliver those with our own dial-a-ride vehicles. That way we can make shorter trips and maximize the number of persons on those buses. For the longer trips, we contract regionally with Valley Metro. They have a vendor called Total Transit, and they have a cab service. And they provide cab service for those longer trips that have single passengers.
Ms. Carla?
Bill, this Total Transit, they are on call as we need them. Is that correct?
Yes, and actually, our contract is through Valley Metro, so we pay Valley Metro, but they are a contractor to Valley Metro, yes.
Okay, and do they actually show up in cabs, or do they sometimes have vans?
It depends on the trip. If it's a person who might need say a wheelchair, they would have a wheelchair-equipped vehicle. Otherwise, it could be a taxi cab, yes.
Okay, and are we limiting our dial-a-ride service to medical needs?
No, it's open to all citizens, anybody over the age of 16.
Okay, and so anyone can call at any time and get a dial-a-ride vehicle to show up at their door and
Yes.
transport them?
Yes, day in advance. You call it day in advance.
Okay, and will it take them outside of the city borders?
It will not generally, no. We will do a transfer to a neighboring community if they have the system. In other words, we will transfer to the city of Glendale, and if they were making a trip to Phoenix, they would be transferred from Peoria to Glendale, Glendale to Phoenix.
Right, yeah. So will we take someone to the mall?
We will take them to the mall because it's right at the border there, yes.
Okay.
You're talking about Arrowhead Mall, I assume.
Well,
Yes.
any mall, I'm trying to make sure that there's no limitations on use.
I'm sorry, did you say some?
I'm wondering if there's any limitations on use.
Generally, city
Destination-
limits.
Destinations. Okay, so during the downturn, did we cut back on our dial-a-ride service?
We cut costs. We cut costs because we did that across the department. We had a budget of about $1.5 million when we started the downturn. We've reduced that closer to $1 million. We did that through attrition. And we did that, so we eliminated a manager position, we eliminated an administrative position, we eliminated one of the dispatchers, we eliminated some drivers when they retired. And all of these were managed attrition. We didn't fire anybody. When those folks left the city, we eliminated those positions. And then we got to where we are right now, the hybrid model that I've described. We said we can be efficient. We can deliver trips efficiently within that 5-mile radius, more or less, and then supplement that with the taxi cabs. So that's the model we've been working with, and it's worked very well for us.
Okay, so we've been able to have 100% service for dial-a-ride and satisfy all the needs of all of the citizens by using these different modes.
Yes.
That's fabulous. That's really great. I'm glad to hear that because I was afraid that we had cut back on that and weren't able to make it up yet. So I'm really glad to hear that we're, meeting all the needs. Good, thank you.
Mr. Leone?
How many drivers do we have for dial-a-ride?
Right now, I think we have 8? You said 5. 5.
Are they all working, or is it just... I talked to one the other day, and he only had 3 drivers. Maybe 2 was out sick or something?
Well, we have 5 drivers. They're not all full-time. If someone is out sick, then we backstop that with the taxi cab, so it doesn't impact our service. So if a person is ill or on vacation or whatever, then that's how we're backing it up.
So you don't have part-timers?
We do have part-timers.
How many of those?
I'm sorry?
Is that including the 5?
It's in the 5, right.
Oh, so how many full-timers do you have?
I think there are 4 full-timers. Is that correct? So Maher's telling me there's 3 full-times, 2 part-time.
Okay, so Ms. Collette asked a question, and I was concerned. She said that they can call any time. Is there a time period, like 24 hours or 48 hours before you can call? If you call at 7 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock the next morning, but like what it sounds like what she was saying, if you call at 8 o'clock in the morning and say got to be someplace at 10, they're going to come right down.
No, that's a good clarification. You are required to call the day in advance.
So it's 24 hours?
24 hours, yes.
Now, that same thing goes for the taxi?
Yes, that from the customer's point of view, it's seamless. We dispatch all the calls, and we make a determination whether we're going to send our own bus or whether we're going to send the total transit taxi. But we dispatch all those trips, and the way we book them is just the same, whether it's our own vehicle or whether it's a taxi. It's a day in advance notice.
I know. I get people asking me, why do you have to make the 24 hours or whatever it is ahead of time? A lot of times they get a call that they have to go to the doctors right away, and you guys just won't pick them up.
Yeah, our experience has been, and across the valley, it's a minimum 1 day in advance booking. Our experience is it's very difficult for us to manage that on the same day service. So that's one of the parameters, one of the rules that we have with the program. That's been in place for some time.
But what if you're sick and you have to go to the doctors right away?
We would not be able to accommodate
Then you're on your
that.
own, right? Huh? Call 911. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Ames?
Yes, and I think you should mention that, we get reimbursement when it's an ADA certified person. And we're looking to make that more effective, correct?
That's exactly right. We do get reimbursement for our ADA trips. Those are all paid for through the regional and the FTA. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide for some additional services that we're looking to get that are paid for regionally.
And you do go outside for a couple of the hospitals, right, that are nearby?
Yes, that is what we call Dial-A-Ride Plus, and we'll go to those hospitals that are immediately adjacent to us. It's not limited to the hospitals. It would be those medical offices that are usually satellite to those hospitals. So when you have medical offices around Arrowhead or Thunderbird or Boswell, we go to those general areas and we'll take our citizens there.
And some cities in the valley only do ADA. Certified people?
A number of cities have gone.
And there are others that do generally, and Glendale even seems to go beyond that, but anyway.
Yeah, the Phoenix, for example, a few years ago, has cut back to only ADA service with their Dial-A-Ride.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Leone.
Getting back to the Dial-A-Ride, is the taxi the same price as the Dial-A-Ride itself, the van?
For the customer, it's the same cost.
Same cost. Okay, then, so if they call for a van and there's no van around, will the taxi come and pick them up?
If I understand your question, if they call for one of our vehicles and they're not available, we send a taxi. Yes, we'll book it by whatever is necessary to make the trip.
Okay, thank you.
There are 3 supplementals in the transit area, and going back to Councilor Ames' point, these are all going to be paid for and reimbursed through the region, whether it's through Valley Metro, whether it's through FTA, these costs will be reimbursed. So as we replace our transit vehicles, we budget for those. They're one-time costs, and we don't put these in an equipment reserve fund, so every time we do these, we bring these forward as a budget supplemental. And again, these are reimbursed. We are increasing our other professional services, and this $25,000 is other professional services as taxi cabs. So this is going to be enhancing our ability to serve through the taxi cabs. And again, these trips will be reimbursed by the region. We're going to be adding some additional bus shelters on Peoria Avenue. We've done an evaluation of the ones we have, of the bus stops that we have on Peoria Avenue. We're going to be infilling some of those with bus shelters. Additionally, we're going to put bus shelters on Thunderbird Road. There's no bus service on Thunderbird Road today, but there will be in July of 2014. So we're planning on doing those. This $6,000 is the cost to maintain those shelters. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Ms. Rivera?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question about the Fleet Division, Mr. Mattingly. It seems like we have a total of 8 technicians in that division. Are we adequately staffed in that area? I know there's been some cuts over the years in that division.
Vice Mayor Rivero, I believe we are adequately staffed in Fleet. We have had, over the last year, some vacancies. We've also had, as I've heard other departments describe, people who are out on extended leave, and that does create problems for us at times. But I think with a full-time contingent of 8 persons, we're adequately staffed.
Okay. I just have some questions about certification and training. Page 802, the last item on that page, 520505. It's the operator certification. Can you talk about that?
Yes, this is a program I'm really proud of. This is in the water and wastewater utility. All of our operators, the persons who work for the utility, are certified by the state of Arizona, the Department of Environmental Quality. Now, there are 4 areas of certification: water treatment, wastewater treatment, water distribution, and wastewater collection. Depending on your position, you may require a certification level 1, the lowest level, or you may require a certification level 4. and those are defined in the job description. And those minimum qualifications are what you need to perform your job. We encourage our employees to get certified outside their area of responsibility, which makes them useful to me across the entire utility. So if I have an operator who's in the wastewater collections area who's certified in water, I can use them in both areas. We pay for those additional certifications beyond their minimum qualifications. So this certification program is designed and has been very successful in getting every one of our employees in those areas: water collection, water distribution, wastewater collection, water treatment, wastewater treatment. They are all certified. Okay. Our supervisors are all certified at level 4 all the way across.
So this is not certification pay, right?
This is, in fact, certification pay.
Is certification pay limited only to utility employees? I know in the past the policy was more broad to give certification to mechanics, employees in community services and across the city.
Vice Mayor Rivero, we have a certification pay program in our fleet area as well. In this case, they would be ASE certified, and we pay for those certifications as well. Again, above their minimum qualification, and to maintain those certifications, we compensate those employees. Again, it makes them more valuable to us.
Okay. Next page, 803. Continuing on the discussion of training, the first item, local training meeting. Can you discuss that's about?
We have, throughout the downturn, across the department, maintained our budgets. We reduced them, but we've maintained funding for training for all of our employees. We think it's very important. But we focus on local training. Now, this can be done in a number of ways. It can be done either through some of the resources that our Human Resources Department provides, or through safety training that's offered through the safety folks in our Human Resources Department, Glenn Jones. We have our own safety compliance person within Public Works Utilities who helps us to arrange these, and we'll bring in trainers from the outside to train at our locations. Additionally, we will use this to go to local conferences, those that are in Arizona, to provide training for our employees.
In the past, you had a trainer specific to utilities and public works housed in the department, correct?
Yes, we have a person who's dual function. She's our safety compliance person, and she does training as well, yes.
Okay. Next item, city membership dues. That's for $26,000. Can you talk about the benefits of having that membership?
So the ones that are listed here are the Water Environmental Research Foundation, American Water Works Association, that's AWWA, and others. Those others would be AZ Waters. These are the professional organizations that provide some of that training. They do offer annual conferences. There's an opportunity to share knowledge across the valley, across the industry, and they're very important for maintaining our professional credentials and just being up to speed on one of the best practices.
Okay. Page 821, moving on to overtime. Is this overtime ongoing, $14,000?
So this is in the water production area. Water production for us is the wells, reservoirs, booster stations. And this is required for emergency callback. We respond, we're a 24/7 operation. We have folks who are on standby in every one of our utilities areas. And when we need people, they're paid to be on standby. When we need to call them back, we need to pay them overtime according to our agreements.
The $14,000 doesn't include standby, right? It's just specific to overtime?
This is specific to overtime.
Okay. What can you do to try to limit? I know there's emergencies that come up, but is there any way we can reduce the overtime cost?
This, I believe, is a modest amount for overtime. I think we're appropriately staffed in this area. It's really the kind of the conversation that our fire chief had yesterday. You have to kind of evaluate overtime and staffing and find that right balance. 14,000 is not even a full-time employee, so it is, I think it's a modest amount.
I wasn't referring to adding more positions, efficiencies that you can put forward that could reduce that cost. That was my question.
Yeah, and again, what it is primarily for is those unplanned events where you have to respond after hours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ames.
Yes, I'm looking at page 771, and that's performance report. And I'm looking at that first one, the rating of the quality of our water, drinking water service. And I notice you have 75%, and the Peoria Times Survey has had us at 73. How do we get higher? And you had 48, but that was a different measure back in 11, right? Fiscal year 11.
Yes, the 48% was a result of the last citizen survey that we did. And to be honest, we're very perplexed as to how they came up with that.
73, yeah.
Well, 73 was, as you point out, the Peoria Times survey, and you can judge whether that was scientific or not. But it's a perplexing number for us. We do our very best to respond to customer service complaints. We do all that we can. We maintain our system in 100% compliance with all of our regulations. Our consumer confidence report that we publish annually demonstrates that we meet all the drinking water standards. Yeah. So my personal opinion, and that's what it is that we have folks who are just become accustomed to using drinking or bottled water, and there's not a good reputation for public water.
It's the taste. They don't care for the taste. Is that right? As you know, I've had a number of citizens contact me, and you worked well with them. I appreciate that. Okay.
And if I might add, Councilmember Ames, on the 23rd, I believe, of this month in study session, we will have the people from the National Citizen Survey coming and presenting the results of the most recent citizen survey, and we can check that dimension of the survey against the old number there.
Yeah, 48 is...
Yeah. As Bill mentioned, we were perplexed by that.
Perplexing than the 73.
Right.
I know you're going to get some people who just assume there's something wrong, right?
Yeah, we'll have new information.
Don't like the taste. And my other one is the recycling diversion rate. Are we kind of stuck at 25% as our goal here, and that's what we're achieving?
Councilor Ames, we're at 25%. And recently, I heard an initiative from the city of Phoenix who's proposing, they have a campaign they call 40 by 20. That is a 40% diversion rate by 2020. I think that's a good goal, and we're going to find out what they're doing and piggyback on all the things that they're doing and strive for that goal. Now, we've set, an EPA has a nationwide goal of 35%, and we've been talking about that. But I think it's time to try to get to that higher diversion rate.
So you should put that as your new target, I think, right?
I would agree.
Okay. I'm on page 773 now, and well, you had a lot of supplementals, but only 2.74% increase. Is that because you kind of do certain supplementals one year and others the next year and that kind of a thing? Is that?
Yeah, that's what that accounts for. You're talking about the 2.74?
Yeah, well,
yes.
That's low relative to most of the other departments, so I'm pleased with that. But you must be doing some management, because when you look at the supplementals, it looks like, wow, we're going to go considerably higher, but not the case. You had different supplementals the previous year, I suspect.
Yes.
Right? And you manage that way by not doing everything at once.
Well, we try. We are very sensitive to what it means across the department with respect to costs.
But I do notice two, and actually three, and I guess they're all reserved. It's on the same page, 773. The solid waste reserve, that's gone up also almost $1 million. And the fleet reserve and the street transit equipment reserve, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. The In the solid waste fund, what you're looking at is a proposal. We put money into the fund every year to replace our equipment. And this year, we're scheduled to replace 8 of our solid waste vehicles. So that's what's budgeted, that's what's scheduled. Now, we're looking at that to see whether or not it's prudent to do all 8 this year. Can we do half now and do half next year? But that's what that number is. So we're purposefully putting money away to replace this equipment. And now we're drawing on those funds when it is scheduled to replace it. So that's what you're seeing there.
This is kind of like a supplemental, then, isn't it?
It's listed as a supplemental. It comes that way.
And let me see, I think I had one more here. 775, the blue staking is as much done there as there used to be in the past. I noticed at one time we had 3 employees, now 2, and are we kind of required to do that?
We are required to mark. We have a time frame in which we're required to mark. We're meeting those metrics, and I don't think we need to do anything to add more staff in this area.
And we do the Peoria stake utilities, correct?
Yes, in this case, what we're marking are water lines, wastewater lines, sewer lines, storm drains. We have folks that are not listed here, but our traffic signal folks will mark traffic signal conduit and streetlight conduit. So those folks don't hold the title of utility locator. They're traffic signal techs, but they handle that aspect of it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Leone.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, on this maintenance on these manholes, can you explain it? Do you service them once a year, every 6 months, twice a year, or?
What we do,
I get calls with probably everybody else about roaches coming up in the sewer, and when I call you, I know you go down and you seal it, but what did that seal do, and how many times a year do you do it, or you do it like once a year, once every 2 years?
Councilor Leone, with respect to manhole, what we call dusting, which would be, to treat for insects, roaches, that's done on a 2-year cycle. And if you have a particular complaint, what we'll do is we'll send our contractor, we contract those services out, we'll send our contractor out to dust that particular manhole. We don't seal the manholes, we treat them.
You don't see, I thought I saw some manholes with cement all the way around it. Would that be sealing them?
What you may be seeing is in the roadway, you have an iron ring for the manhole.
Right.
And then around there, they have a concrete, what I would call a collar. And that's what they use to adjust the manholes to match the roadway grade. When they pave, they need to raise them up to that level. They use the concrete to fill in that space. I think that's what you're referring to.
So what is that dust? I mean, you say dust. Is that?
It's an insecticide.
Oh, okay.
And it's in a powdered form.
And when you do that, and then say I get a call 6 months later, it's still happening. Do you go back and do it again?
We will.
Will you?
We'll hold our vendor responsible for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I notice in all of the, I think this whole budget says other allowance, clothes, tools, and boots. Only 2014, you're going up 2.75 from the other 2 years. Is that you're buying more boots? And this on page 925.
925?
I guess so. Yeah. I'm looking at 925. Other allowance. And you're going. It's 2.75. You went up 7.5. Does that mean you're buying more boots or tools?
What this is it's also uniforms.
Uniforms?
So it includes uniforms. So what we do in most cases, we have a uniform service. We did get a new uniform service contract in the last 6 months. So these are the costs to pay our vendor to deliver uniforms and to launder them.
Because I see the last 2 years didn't go up, but this year it did.
We did have a new contract this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Carla.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to recycling.
Yes.
Saw an opening, and I'm going to just take it here. If for us to increase our diversion rate, obviously we're going to have to increase the amount of recyclables that we take in, and that's going to have to include green waste and even compost. And so, having said that, I would love for us to be able to put together some kind of an analysis and come back in a study session at a later time during this year, and we can talk about how we're going to do that. And, you know, I know we were really open about all of the various MRFs that we're using now and the different places for different landfills we're using and all the different tipping fees that we've, you know, put in there, all strategically placed. I think it's time for us to be even more open-minded about maybe trash and recycling on the same day, maybe different kinds of recycling, maybe even changing the context of commercial pickups versus residential and how we deem which one is which. That is up to us to decide how to define those. And so I would really like to bring back an entire analysis of our solid waste department and see how we can increase recycling, which is the one aspect that actually brings us revenue, and maybe look for some efficiencies along the way.
We'd be pleased to do that.
I knew you would be. I am so happy to hear that. Thank you.
Mr. Leone.
Yeah, in fact, we have that as a council goal, right?
You know, to follow up on that recycling, how are we doing on that? The reason why I ask, you know, like my own subdivision, when I go outside and see the recycling, I see a lot of garbage in there. So what happens when you get garbage and recycling garbage, and when they have to spread them out, do we lose money on that? Or my question is, how are we doing? Are we doing okay on it?
We are doing
buy
okay.
another building?
Your question is really, are they contaminating the recyclables? And when we take material to the materials recovery facility, they will periodically sample a load and look to see whether it's contaminated, and to the degree it's contaminated. We are allowed a certain amount of contamination, and we do very well with those spot audits. But if you know of somebody who may be putting the wrong things in the recycling container, we have folks that can go out there and talk to them about how to do that correctly. We do have folks that go out and do that on a periodic basis. They're not getting to every home every year, but they are going out there and doing some sampling and, again, talking to neighbors. They're not giving them a citation. They're talking to the people as to what's appropriate and what's not. Most people will change when they know. The other thing, going back, we do the bulk trash program. One of the things we do there is we go through those piles before we send our people out there to pick those up. And sometimes we find things that don't belong in there. So that's the other thing that those folks do who are out there, looking at the recyclables. And again, educating, not fining or citing people.
Yeah, but I understand, but the thing is that my question was that if you get the garbage in recycling, do they sort them out? Do we lose money on that? Because it takes, I don't know how many people on a conveyor to sort them out. So I don't know if we make money on that, or they take off, deduct.
No, we don't lose money on that. There is a certain amount of waste in the whole recycling process that they sort through and they discard things that don't belong in there. But with respect to what we're sending there, we're within the requirements that we have for the facility that we're recycling at.
And on our bulk service, how are we doing on that? Because I get some calls that people like to see it twice a year. I never use it. I never put stuff out, because I don't have any put out. So I was just wondering, is there any chance of having it twice a year? I think Tony asked the same question one time about twice a year.
Yes, Counselor, we looked at that last year. We looked at that last year through a subcommittee process, and then we brought it to council as a whole and talked about what our opportunities were for doing twice a year, 4 times a year bulk trash. And there was a cost associated with that. And we had an opportunity to lower our rates. We lowered our rates 13%. We could have lowered them a lesser amount and offered additional services, including more frequent bulk trash service. But the consensus of the council was they would prefer to try to maximize the reduction in the rate, so we didn't change that service.
I'd like to bring that back to a study session and talk about it. If it's, uh, the second bulk pickup, you won't get as many as you did in the first. Like I say, I think my whole street, we never use it, and they don't have anything to put out. But I don't think in the second pickup you'd have that much. So I don't know if it'd be a waste of money sending our drivers around, but I think I would like to talk about it.
Yeah, Councilmember Leone, I think what Councilmember Carlett suggested a few minutes ago about a comprehensive discussion of the solid waste program, we could add this into that comprehensive discussion so it would come back in the same study session.
That's good. Thank you.
Just to follow up a little bit, what percentage of people put out solid waste? It's 20%, 25%?
Good idea. 10%?
Okay.
He's saying 30 or 32%.
So the majority don't use it, and they'd be paying for those who do use it. Is it?
Yeah, and I imagine some folks may not use it every year. So you may have some, I'm sure folks are accustomed to it, will use it every year. There's some folks who may never use it depending on where it is they live.
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
I would ask the council, we've just now taken an hour to complete the first of 9 department hearings tonight. Would you please keep questions into the budget? If you have operational questions, you can meet with the department heads offline. Thank you. Who's next?
Thank you, Mayor. Up next is the Community Services Department, and John Sefton is here to present, and it starts on page 71.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Katie, thank you for that introduction. I'm very happy to present my first budget to the City of Peoria. And with that, I have to take just a quick moment and express my appreciation and thanks to staff. The budget team, Barry and Katie, as well as my managers, my management analysts, and the supervisors who I required each of them to come in and run through their budget to help educate me on where we are and what we're doing in the Community Services Department. We have over 1,000 line items in the Community Services budget, divided between 36 divisions. So there's a lot. So to simplify everything, I've broken it down into 7 principled areas where we work to, our mission is in the Community Services Department is to meet the needs of the citizens of Peoria by developing, implementing, and maintaining quality programs, services, events, and facilities which are cost-effective, creative, and responsive to citizen input. Each of our disciplines do truly lead and funnel right into the council goals and objectives, including enhancing services, community building, preserving and protecting our natural environment, leadership and image, as well as total planning. So jumping right into our section areas, the administration division is primarily driven by personnel and technology to provide the services of the overall leadership and planning and support of the unique and varied recreational, library, parks, arts and culture functions. This area for new budget additions will be a customer service representative, which will be at the front desk of the Community Services building, and our accreditation costs associated with the Community Services Department becoming accredited through CAPRA. And the primary driver for the addition is the additional amenities within the system for the customer service representative. The Recreation Division includes AM/PM, recreation and community centers, aquatics, special interest classes for seniors, teens, outdoor programming, adaptive recreation, and adult day programming, and special events. And you'll recall we'll talk on the 12th about special events. Now that diversity, yes, you can even go kayaking, geocaching, and you can participate in underwater basket weaving. I kid you not. Our cost drivers are aging facilities and the amenities, the service charges, and the fee changes that we'll also talk about moving forward. Our supplementals this year are broken into three main areas: maintaining level of service and efficiencies, maintaining our assets, and programming and services for our new amenities, primarily the expanded community center and the Pioneer Community Park. Our next division is the Parks Division. Since 2011, we've added 19 and a half acres of neighborhood park land with the expansion of Osuna Park, opening of Palo Verde Park and Westland Park and Scotland Yard Park. This division oversees 295 total acres at 33 park locations and 25 miles of river and mountain trails. Our budget additions for this year focus on primarily maintaining the assets and the safety of our community parks, as well as creating efficiencies with improvements to our irrigation system management. The right-of-way area is responsible for 298 acres, which was increased by 40 acres this past 2 years, to 338 total acres. Primary service there is on contractual services and keeping the area clean, aesthetically pleasing, and primarily driven by maintenance of trash, litter, and weeds. Our new budget additions this year is the contract on that expansion. This is an ongoing request for an additional $125,000 and an additional ongoing request of $50,000 for water to help keep those plants healthy. The Sports Complex Division includes the Peoria Sports Complex, the Rio Vista Park, and the new Pioneer Community Park. Some of the challenges are aging facilities and amenities, utility costs, as well as personnel. Our new budget additions, funded through the Capital Improvement Plan for Pioneer Community Park and the associated operating costs, we estimate $924,000, just north of that, with a 45% revenue offset. And we are adding 4 FTEs on the maintenance level. The other two are the Rio Vista Park, which is an increase of revenue as well for the rates and usage, and those are 100% revenue offset. And a sports complex part-time sponsorship sales assistant is a one-time request, and that refunds 100% of its costs as well. Library services, our next division. A really important thing to point out for library services, it's exciting to see this broken out: educate, inform, enrich, inspire, and entertain. EI, EI, EI. Oh, how good they are at doing it. And they've got a number of great friends and partners to help deliver the services that they have. The Friends of the Library, we've seen their presentation not too long ago. The Greater Phoenix Digital Library, PUSD, Workforce Connection and AZ Jobs, the Maricopa County Library and the Arizona Republic on our summer reading program, Benavia, and First Thing First. They've really done a great job at reaching out into the community and becoming partners to help deliver the services of the library. And I've got a special note here. When the economy struggles, the use of the library increases exponentially. And that's been proven. The additional budget this year are one-time requests for technology funding at the library, primarily focused around the self-check kiosks at the libraries. So as opposed to having staff do the check-in, check-out, they're utilizing self-check. And I think John talked about the XP Windows 7 issue. That's directly related to this as well. We want to add for an ongoing request an additional $12,000, which has a 100% revenue offset. Unique Management Systems is an outside agency that really acts as a collection agency for those items that are overdue. They not only collect the fines associated with the delay in that return of that piece or that book, but they also collect the items. So the benefit is well over that 100% revenue offset. And our final area is the arts. Obviously, our cost driver here is the public art investment. Traditionally, the arts have been funded through one-time requests. The maintaining levels of service the past several years through the Percent for the Arts has been focused on issuing art grants, $115,000, $100,000 for general operating support, $7,500 for city performance grants, and $7,500 for festival grants. We also have a one-time request for $280,000 for varied large-scale public art pieces and $25,000 for small-scale public art pieces. And with that, I'll do my best to respond to any questions, and if I have to, I might use a lifeline and get my staff to come down and help me.
Good. Mr. Rivera.
Questions about Pioneer Community Park and the four positions that you're requesting in the budget. If you look at the titles of the classification, there's an irrigation tech, parks and sports facilities crew leader, sports facilities maintenance coordinator. Is this just the total staff that's going to be at that park?
No, these are the leadership positions. There's a number of dollars associated with seasonal or part-time staff to help support the general 7-day-a-week operation. And we do have the opportunity to leverage some of our existing staff and their knowledge and practice from Rio Vista and the sports complex. So the three high-scale, highly amenitized park units will be working together. So this really leverages to that next.
How many staff are going to work at the park?
Total amount. Depending upon needs, and again, the seasonality. So it's really schedule driven. There's the basis of getting these staff on board. We've already had frontline or leadership staff, management staff going through the construction process. The dollar amount for seasonal should be
About 153,000?
153,000. Thank you very much.
But my question, John, again, is how many permanent FTEs are you going to have allocated for the park?
It would be those four positions.
Plus the park ranger that we discussed last night with the police department.
So you're not going to have the regular parks and maintenance type classifications working at that park? It's all going to be done by part-time seasonal workers?
These four positions will supervise the seasonal work.
Okay.
Why is that? Following your
okay.
question.
Why is that approach? And this is just a question. Why is that approach being taken versus hiring regular FTEs like the parks and maintenance landscape workers that we use at other parks, and we use at Rio Vista and at the sports complex?
I would have to get a little more into the analysis. As far as the recommendation, staff has brought this forward. It's been determined the best approach to open the park and launch the maintenance, utilizing the seasonal, and again, leveraging our current staff. As far as not hiring certain park operator positions, what's been recommended was sufficient to accomplish the initial year of operation. Okay. I don't know if...
Thank you.
There's no rec center here, right? So it's a
very
different kind of staffing.
All sports, field, and park maintenance, playground, fishing lake.
But some of the smaller parks, you don't have just one person. They may go to several parks, right?
Exactly.
Mayor and Council, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that is pretty comparable to the contingent that you have at Rio Vista Park and the way that is arrayed as well, where you do have a series of part-time staff that are administered with additional supervisory staff above that. Seemed to work as a good model for us.
You done? Mr. Young.
Yeah, on the right-of-ways, the right-of-ways usually brings out the subdivisions, when people walk down the street, drive down the street, they look at the right-of-way and say how nice and green it is. I know on 107th Avenue in Northern, they had put plants, trees, it looked great. My question is that how many times a year do they maintain it? Because when I walk down or go down there, it looks like there's a lot of dead plants. How many times do they change the plants or they pick up the garbage that's been thrown in there? And that's my concern. And the people ask me, says, when are they going to start trimming these trees and when they're going to put some new plants in and when they're going to pick up the garbage? So my question is how many times a year do they do these things?
Yeah, in general, it's a monthly assignment, and Kirk can help me out with if there's anything specific to that, or we can get back to you on the specific dates and or times as far as the general contract for the right-of-way. Again, we've got 200 plus acres, and each area is managed slightly different. So knowing a unique area helps us to identify whether that's under contract or whether our parks crews are taking care of that area as well. So we can get back to you on that specific area.
Okay.
Okay.
Other questions?
Did I answer that right, Kirk?
Trash and litter,
Trash and
52 times a year. They're out there on a weekly basis picking up litter on our public right-of-ways once a week. And that's correct. On a monthly basis, they go in and do trimming and additional maintenance. Some of the reasons on some of the trimming, they don't trim 12 times that they're out there. Each plant has unique specificity as to how it's managed and maintained. If we trim it once or twice a year, that would be the norm. So if there is dead plant material that is not getting removed, it's okay to call that in if you see it and observe it. We'll send the contractor back out there and make sure that those things are taken care of. But generally, pruning maintenance is about once or twice per year.
Is the same contract you had all the time, or has it ever changed? How long have you had this contract?
This contractor that we currently have has been in service for the past 5 years. We're currently going through a review and assessment of their performance and looking at additional other contractors that have put in proposals. We're looking at the possibility of making changes to new contractors beginning the first of the year. The current contract will cease June 30th and any new contracts will begin July 1st. It could be a renewal or it could be a new contractor. We're doing that assessment right now.
I know on 103rd Avenue, you cut them down, and it looks like they're not coming back up. So I don't know if the roots are dead or you just cut them down and hope they come back. Go back and check them out or what?
We had a tough winter, very hard frost. We had one of the colder winters on record, and we were waiting for some of the greenery to come back deep into the plants. So the contractors are now starting to go in and prune back hard to the lower base of the plant. Normally, we wouldn't take that approach. The winter survival in the past has been much better, but this year we've had to go back and prune it much harder, deeper into the plant. And if the plant does not survive, then we'll have to come back and replace. But if it does, it's going to be smaller for the first year, and it'll soon establish itself again.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Carlin?
Thank you. Kirk, don't go far. I did see where you are renegotiating your contracts for landscaping for right-of-way. Are you still using two contractors, one for north, one for south?
Yes.
Should I? Okay. All right, and so are you going to continue to do that? Do you think that's still the best thing?
That is the plan.
All right, and this 125,000 is only because we have additional parks, or?
We do. We
Is
have
this including
additional
the parks or just the
right-of-way.
right-of-way?
Right, this is just the right-of-way. We do have additional land for right-of-way, and again, it's 5 years later. So this is still a pretty solid estimate on what those ongoing costs will need to be.
Okay, so we're not anticipating then increasing the contracts for parks, just right away.
Correct, with this division.
Okay, but we have taken on new parks in the
We have.
last 5 years, so how are we going to incorporate that into our current budget?
As you know, we are under our PROST analysis, and as part of the PROST analysis, the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Master Plan, we do have the consultant looking at an operational analysis. We have a handful of positions, and we've been using seasonal staff to support the needs of the daily operation. seasonal and some contract staff as well for this fiscal year. So once we get through the post analysis, and we'll come back through and make sure that we've got the right amount of and the right level of staff for each of our park operations.
Mayor and Council, so if I may just mention, one of the items that you might be aware is as we bring on these neighborhood parks, as part of the capital program, we do anticipate the operating cost of that, and so it helps to hire for maintenance workers, for example, of those neighborhood parks. So that's generally, as we bring these parks on, we have incorporated that as part of the decision making.
So then, in addition to the contract workers that we have for landscape, we are also doing some of our landscaping with in-house employees. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, good, because that was going to be another question of mine, whether we needed to do an analysis of that whole thing, bringing it in-house or not. And then along those same lines, I see with Rio Vista, and I'm probably reading this wrong, so Rio Vista, we've got an increase in their budget of 12.24%, and of course we're bringing on Pioneer Park this year. But I only see one entry for Parks North, and there is a decrease in that budget of 2.3%. So where is the? I am on page 84. Just your expenditure by division.
Councilmember, I think I can answer that. That is some of the supplementals that you see that Mr. Sefton talked about, and it's also there was an increase in some of the service charges to the park.
To Rio Vista?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not questioning so much the increase in Rio Vista. I'm questioning the decrease in Parks North and the equity of the distribution of our parks throughout our city. I'm just not finding it here in the budget, so it's probably listed somewhere that I'm missing?
Mayor, so I will, if I can refer you to page 88, and we will follow up on some of the rationale. It does reflect a position change from Parks North to Parks South. My guess is just probably the oversight within that division. My guess is that it's the same contingent that you have at each one of the neighborhood parks, but we might have one of the parks that was attributable to and move to a different division or a different supervisor that saw over that. But we will absolutely make sure and follow up on that for you.
Okay, and then again, the equity of parks throughout the city. Lighted ball fields, increased amenities, other parks in the northern part of the city, so that there will be enough for those same taxpayers, that the taxpayers in the middle and southern portion of the city, same amenities they receive. I don't see anything in the budget for that.
Ms. Carla, there will be in the capital budget a discussion of the acceleration of the new community park in the north, Community Park 3.
2018,
Mm-hmm.
the beginning of 2018 is when the construction will start on Community Park number 3.
That's part of it.
We have a very serious equity problem for amenities for the citizens who pay the same taxes that everybody else pays in the city. They are not receiving the same in return for their dollars as people in the middle and the southern portion of the city are receiving. And it's not in this budget. And it's very disheartening, very, very disheartening, and we need to do something to reconcile it. Should we just wait for another year to go by until the next budget comes out?
We should do a careful analysis. It should be per capita, and it should be fields with lights and without lights. There really aren't that many lighted fields even in Palo Verde.
The fact is, during the beginning of the conversation about the Prost, we were going to see an analysis that showed areas of service and the amenities that go with them. And I have not seen that.
And that's in process right now. I mean, the consultant was here today with our government day group. So we're through the process. We've got the public meetings that are underway. We've continued to have the GIS acquisition of all of our asset, acreage, and other things. So it is taking time, and it is due in its process. We'll have the consultant here before the July break, late June, early July, with an update on that information, as well as the results from our community survey, with the final result back November-ish for you guys to consider and to be able to look at and provide a close assessment of what you're talking about with the analysis from a population standpoint, from a resource and amenity, the connectivity to those amenities, and the different types of amenities. So it's underway, and for it to be reflected at this point in this budget operationally, maybe premature. There's a balance of resources, north and south, and the team has split those areas appropriately. So the north-south dividing line is relatively close, 11, 12 FTEs, and financial is similar as well. And so,
Wait, excuse me. Are you telling me that there is a balance right now, that there is an equity
from
between
an
the north and south?
I'm sorry.
No,
From an
no.
operational standpoint, the operation of taking care of the parks that we currently have is divided by north and south. And the definition of what north and south is likely not your definition of what north and south is, but it is to divide the workload and to take care of the amenities that we currently have in our system and are planning for over the next year.
Councilmember, and also I did just want to mention, I think that's right, is that we do have a comparable level of service at all of our existing neighborhood parks. One thing that we did want to mention is that earlier on in the budget process, as we had some discussions on this, there was some discussion by council about the interest in providing these additional amenities in the north, and we heard you. And as a result, the capital plan has been adjusted pretty significantly to invest in a very large community park in the north. This is the first effort by the city to do that. We expect there will be very good discussion on this when we bring this up in the capital program. But I think that we did attempt, as you'll see, to try to accommodate the council's interest in this area. And but one thing I think in regard to Mr. Sefton is, once that capital program is established, we will make sure to put every effort in to reflect the operating cost to make sure that it is supported at the appropriate level of service as well.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And yet, it's still not someplace I can go and play. And the citizens in the northern part of the city cannot go and play. And there is no place for them to hold an event, to have any kind of a city event there. And that brings us to the next problem, which is not even this budget topic right now. So it's a problem, and I have been talking about it for quite a long time, and for it not to be in this budget in any way, shape, or form is unacceptable to me.
We hear you, and we will attempt to make a response as we go forward. Again, especially as we look at the capital plan, and in regard to the venues, I think that there will be further discussion when we talk about the special events discussion as well, about some attempts that we have to help service that area. But I think that we do hear you loud and clear and appreciate the feedback.
Yeah. And this is a council goal, and the rest of us are interested in equity as well, Kathy. So
I appreciate that.
Do you have anything else?
I think I'm finished.
Mr. Pateta.
John, I just have one question regarding the new community center downtown. Have you seen an increase in participation, and has the demographic changed at all?
Yes to both. I think that we're starting to see a much younger crowd, the different types of services, the different amenities. The team is very busy over there, and they are seeing exactly that. They're offering different types of classes. They're offering after school types of programs. We've got a great crew over there, and they too have been impressed and with the changing of the demographic, but at the same time, it's really kind of moved from what might have been serving a perhaps more segmented demographic to now more of a holistic and multi-generational service area. So,
Mr. Ames.
yes, I have one question here, and I see your total increase is 2.64, and that's really good since we're having 5 additional staff, or 5. We had one administrative as well as the Pioneer Park. And I noticed that was accomplished in part by a great reduction in the capital outlay. Can you tell me about that? Tell us about that?
Councilmember, I can answer that one. In the sports complex last year, or the current year, they are expecting to replace a lot of their equipment and some of their carts, utility carts. So that's in the 13 budget. Of course, that would go away for 14, so there's a big drop in that capital area in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Andy Granger, our city engineer, and he'll be speaking on behalf of the engineering department, and that starts on page 287.
Thank you, Katie. Mayor and members of the council, I'm happy to present the engineering department's fiscal year 14 operating budget. Our proposed budget is approximately $5 million. 75% of that is from the general fund, and about approximately 25% is from the highway user revenue fund. The general fund funds 4 divisions within the engineering department, and the highway user revenue fund funds the traffic engineering division within the engineering department. The administrative division generally supports the overall goal of the department, which is to implement our capital improvement program, and that really supports the other 4 divisions as well, which is the engineering service division, which implements all of our capital improvement projects within the right-of-way, including our street improvement projects and our drainage projects. Our architectural services division manages all of our projects that aren't in the right-of-way. So our fire departments, our new police departments, our community parks, our new community parks, our libraries, and any other type of amenities that we have in our capital program that are outside of the right-of-way. And then lastly, our right-of-way inspections group oversees and inspects all of the construction within the right-of-way. That not only includes our capital projects in the right-of-way, but also includes all of the private development projects that construct public utilities within the right-of-way. And lastly, our traffic engineering division supports the rest of the city and implements traffic counts, traffic studies throughout the city, our traffic management center, and our traffic signals, as well as our neighborhood traffic management program and our Safe Routes to School program. Our primary council goal that we try to address is to implement our capital program, which is to improve our infrastructure throughout the city, through our parks, our public facilities, as well as improve our streets and our circulation throughout the city. Our performance metrics, the main performance metrics that we have is to maintain and monitor the projects that we complete on time and on budget. And we've got performance goals associated with that. We also, on an annual basis, implement an internal survey with our client departments to see how we're doing and how we service our internal departments. And then we also rely on our citizen survey, which is our city manager said will be coming up at an upcoming council session, study session. And lastly, we didn't really increase any line item budgets within our operating budget, but we do have one supplemental, which is a supplemental that's a carryover from last year, and that's for a part-time construction projects coordinator that we did have in last year's budget. And the purpose of this position is to help us with the clubhouse construction and the sports teams facilities at the Peoria Sports Complex. And we anticipate this to be a part-time position. They were here working this year, and they're going to be here working next year. When the clubhouse construction is done, this part-time coordinator will go away. But this is a 100% cost recovery position also as part of the contract. And with that, I'll take any questions that you have.
Sure.
Mr. Granger, on that note, is this going to be the third year we have that person or that classification in your department?
We've had this classification. This is a contract position. Mm-hmm. This one, we had 2 people initially. We had a full-time contract position that we've have a vacancy within our department that we plan on filling with that person this year. So that eliminated one of those supplementals that we had last year, and so we'll just carry over one supplemental that started last year, and this will be the second year that we have it.
And this position is for the sports complex. Do you plan to bring this back next year?
We do not anticipate to bring this back next year.
Okay. I've seen that there's been a drop in 6 positions in your department in the last 2 years. That hasn't impacted customer service?
No, we've had a little bit of a drop in our capital program, and we've seen that. 4 or 5 years ago, we had a $1 billion 10-year program. We're down to a $500 million 10-year program. So it's still front-loaded. We still are very busy, but we're trying to monitor that. We've lost some project managers through attrition, and we've also lost some administrative staff through attrition. But we still feel that we can perform our key goals and our key services with the staff that we have.
Okay. Looking at the administrative staff in your department and looking at the entire budget, I think you're the only director that doesn't have an executive assistant on Chris Hawkes. How are you able to manage that?
We rely on some of our other administrative service staff within the department that serve dual purposes, and we rely on them, and it's working effectively.
Okay. Page 302, item 520999, for $25,000 of payments to the consultants. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. This is one of the line item budgets that we increased, and we increased it. It's not an overall increase to our budget because we took it from other line items and reduced other line items in our budget, including our overtime services for inspections. But we do see that an increase in smaller studies for drainage issues that we have across the city, and some of the smaller capital projects that we have, or upcoming projects that we can't foresee through the year, that we felt a need to increase this from $10,000 to $20,000.
Can you give examples of studies that took place this year?
Yes, smaller drainage studies. When we need to go out and perform surveys for some of our smaller drainage projects as part of our Community Works program, we will hire surveys, public information companies to help us with some of the public meetings we have that we can't foresee that aren't part of the capital program. Those types of professional services are what we rely on through this line item.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ames?
Yes, I'm looking at the performance report, and you can probably guess the ones I'm looking at. Resident rating traffic flow on major streets as good or excellent. It's, down to about a third of people that rate it as good or excellent. And also on the traffic signal timing as good or excellent. And I do notice that you are spending some money on traffic engineering. It's a new software program, or is that going to help us in this area?
I think it is, as well as other technology that we're implementing right now and trying to use in the future. If you look at our technology in our traffic management center, as well as in our traffic signals, the adaptive technology that we're starting to implement is far superior to some of the other cities in the valley. And I think you'll see that in the upcoming survey results that you'll see at the next study session, as well as when this survey was taken. It was the results are from 2009, and at that time we hadn't completed the Happy Valley Parkway project completely, and we hadn't completed the Beardsley Connector, which really relieved a lot of the congestion in that area. So we hope to see some increases in these numbers.
Yes, we have a long ways to go here.
Yes.
Well, if I may, Councilmember Ames, we're just, Jeff's looking up some of the real early preliminary information we're getting from the citizen survey, and it's going to be going up quite a bit. So the information that you'll be receiving on the 23rd from the survey company will show a pretty dramatic improvement in that area.
Okay, and the other areas working with ADOT, they are pretty lax sometimes on doing their timing on certain streets, such as Grand Avenue, so I think we need to continue to push them. Yeah, I know on that Compass study, that Grand Avenue study that Meg is doing, one of the ADOT people is there, and I keep bringing it up. We can do a lot of things on the roads, but if the lights are timed poorly, cars are stopping all the time and people are unhappy.
That's correct.
Other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, that's my cue. Next up is the Planning and Community Development Department, and Chris Hawkes is here to present on that department, and the page number there is 597.
Great, thank you, Katie. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Pleased to present the FY14 budget for the Planning and Community Development Department. The department is comprised of two divisions, the Community and Strategic Planning Division and Neighborhoods and Revitalization. In terms of the Community and Strategic Planning Division, this division consists of 7 FTEs in 3 functional areas. The first functional area includes zoning administration and development review. It's what we commonly call current planning, but this involves all the development cases we receive, such as general plan amendments, rezones. It also includes use permits and subdivisions. The second category is called strategic planning, and that involves all the planning oversight services that we provide, including transportation and utility planning oversight, annexations, open space program would come under that as well. And then the third functional category is historic preservation, and this includes working with our Historic Preservation Commission in terms of completing the work plan, and also efforts to promote and create awareness for Peoria's various cultural and historic resources. So the function of this division is largely across 4 council goals, as you see on the screen. In terms of some of the measurable service outcomes, one of them is to elevate and improve the quality of the natural and built environment, not only for today's population but tomorrow. I know it sounds a little esoteric, but the way we measure that is we rely on the citizen survey, and of course through community perceptions. The second item is to, of course, as I mentioned, development review cases are a portion of our overall work program. So we work to ensure timely review of development cases, and so we have some metrics that ensure that we make cases reviewed on time in first and second reviews. And finally, we spent some time in the last few years to try to create a more robust civic engagement program. We've widened the radius in terms of who we reach. We've also put in requirements for developers to meet not only with the neighbors, but also to come in for a mandatory pre-app. And so we try to measure how many times projects are appealed. Now, we can't always have 100% acceptance of all the ideas, but at least we're hopeful that the process at least positions us to try to resolve some of these conflicts and minimize and find solutions. The second division, this is called the Neighborhood Revitalization Division. This is comprised of 4 FTEs in 3 functional areas. The grant administration function, of course, this includes the administration of several federally funded grants, including Community Development Block Grant, the home grants, also some locally funded grants like our general fund and our neighborhood grant programs. The other function is neighborhood program administration. And this is another key function. This pertains to the various neighborhood programs we administer, such as the HOA Academy, Neighborhood Pride, and some of the assistance programs like our utility assistance and our tool lending center. And then finally, another important component of the division is liaison and outreach. And this is an important function. This includes trying to create and expand partnerships with various volunteer groups and our service providers that provide services to the citizens of Peoria. Now, many of the activities, of course, in this division are frontline, they're highly visible, and they directly touch constituents. And therefore, they largely advance the 3 goals that you see on the screen: community building, enhance our current services, and absolutely leadership and image. The service outcome is to bolster and improve neighborhoods, and we do this through effective administration of our various grant programs, again, the federally and locally funded grants. Also through improving neighborhoods, and in some efforts we've talked about in the past, Neighborhood Pride particularly, trying to stem the decline of some of our mature areas. And we've been successful, and we try to measure some of our success in the way in which we leverage our investment in terms of negotiating material discounts, the dollar value of labor that we have through our volunteer groups. And we've gotten a very good return, around 100%, 110% of our investment. And finally, it's our ability to reach citizens and align needs with services. So some of the major cost drivers in this division, of course, are personnel. They're the availability of grant funding, which has been stable, but of course, there's always the volatility surrounding the federal government. We never know where that's going to take us. But it's also the demand for human services, and it's our goal to try to align the services provided by the city and not-for-profits meeting the needs of a changing demographic. In terms of budget changes, we have 5 supplementals in your budget. 2 of them are related to our not-for-profit our federal funding sources, CDBG and NSP3. That is the third item there, and what that does is provide appropriation authority for these grant funding sources. The other 3 budget additions, the top one is maintain transportation planning services. With the reorganization a few years ago, one of the functions that planning department took on was transportation planning function. So until recently, this function was provided by Dave Moody as the outside contractor, and so as part of last year's budget, we were authorized to get a contract transportation planner. That position was filled early this year. So what this supplemental is to extend that contract term at least through the end of the fiscal year.
Is that the new staff position? No. Staff position is the neighborhood coordinator.
Correct. Yep, that's a current contract transportation planner that we have in.
So what exactly will this transportation person be doing?
This transportation planner is going to, of course, advise the city on various regional transportation issues. We have several deliverables that we've identified for this program in terms of, we have as you know, a general plan circulation map, which identifies the roadway network of the future. We also have a street classification map, which identifies specific right-of-way requirements. And one of the things we found is that those two documents are out of alignment. So it can be challenging sometimes when a developer comes in when we have a conflict. So that's one of the big needs is to correct that map. We have some planning studies that we're going to be accomplishing over the next year. There's a big circulation component. One of them involves the area up along Loop 303, trying to have a more precise land plan associated with that. Also, looking at the Old Town plan, we did a specific area plan a year ago. We're going to be working on the zoning overlay over the next year, and a big part of that is trying to provide regulations that not only advance the vision, but work towards working with a potential commuter rail station in Old Town. So there's various functions we're looking at.
This is going to be over the entire year?
Correct. That's right, sir. The next supplemental is a program that we've had in play for 8 years, and it's our neighborhood grant program. It's $150,000 one-time supplemental. Of course, this is the program that we offer. We disperse funds twice a year, but we offer to our HOAs and our neighborhood associations. And what it does is provide matching funds for the ability for the neighborhoods to come forward and propose projects. And projects vary anywhere from beautification projects. They might be upgrades to security features in their development. They could be landscaping projects, but a whole host of projects, energy-saving projects. And so this has been a successful program. And probably the most notable budget addition that we're proposing is the addition of a new human resource coordinator. That's the working title we have right now. But as you'll recall, one of the council goals is to expand civic and not-for-profit partnerships. And at the council retreat, we absolutely noted that this was further articulated by the desire to see better coordination between the social services that are available to the public. And so reflecting on that directive, reflecting on, I think, the changing demographic that we'll see over the city, reflecting on the community action program that was offered at the senior center, we saw this as an opportunity to provide a more robust footprint in terms of trying to understand the needs of the citizens and aligning a staff person that can better address and align the needs of them with a service provider. So in reflecting on that position, we see that position would accomplish several things. That position would really be the direct contact for the city in terms of human services. We believe they should identify and inventory the needs and the services delivered. They would develop human services goals for the city. They would be in a position to provide direct referrals and act as a liaison for human and social service providers in the city. Another important component of that, too, is to provide outreach to residents throughout the community, and that could be accomplished in a number of ways. It might be through workshops or various classes they put on. It could be working with some of our agencies to provide pro bono workshops and things to help citizens understand the services that are available to them, or to help them on other things in their lives. It could also be to represent the city at various meetings and working groups throughout the region. It could be at the MAG level. It might be with DES. It could be with the West Valley Human Services Alliance. This position we also see as acting as our fair housing officer. And certainly, and when we look at our work program today, I believe it probably makes sense to have this person also work directly with our general fund grants as well. So that's what we see this position. I think it provides us, it enables us to be in a more direct position to try to meet the needs of the citizens. And then finally, before I close, I just wanted to note that the fiscal year 14 federal and general fund grant recommendations, as recommended by our not-for-profit group, They are in the appendix section of the budget book. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Mr. Rivera.
I want to spend some time on the Human Resources Coordinator with the city having different needs in the north and the south. Is this Human Services Coordinator going to be working throughout the city? Is going to focus in the southern part of the city? What are your thoughts?
That's a great question. My thoughts are that this person needs to take an inventory of the needs throughout the city. The needs in citizens in the north or the south or by demographic might be different. So we need to account for what the services are out there, what the needs are out there, what are the current services that are provided, and try to bridge that gap and find a way to meet all the needs.
But would you agree that there are more human services needs in the south versus the north?
I'm not sure about that. I think there are certainly needs related to there might be needs related to income level. There might have needs related to age. So I think we would have to analyze our demographic throughout the city and really take an inventory of what they are.
Okay. Do you also see the human services? This is the first position that we have in the city for that type of work, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Do you see this program expanding?
It could. I think this is a position that we heard from the council is of a great desire, and I think there's several functions that we've developed. Surely, as the position develops and as time elapses, we'll understand the performance of that position and possibly other functions that it might be able to handle.
So this program could potentially increase.
That's correct.
Okay. And can you spend some time on CDBG funding and NSP3 funding? Just a brief update on that. I did see in your notes that there's an increase in the CDBG funding from the federal government.
Correct. I think there's a modest increase in the CDBG funding. I believe those funding levels aren't set yet, but that's the anticipated increase that we're understanding at this point. And are you asking why we're seeing an increase in the CDBG funding?
Yes.
Or, Karen, would you be able to assist me with that one?
Rivero, at the time that we did the budget, we had received some information that there would be approximately 11% increase in CDBG funds. That was before sequestration. So at this point, the federal government and Congress has not agreed on a budget for CDBG. So what you see in your book is a balanced budget for CDBG from the current year. So we just took our current allocation and went ahead and balanced to, all of our applicants to that amount. And then there are 2 applicants noted on there, that one in the public service section and one in the project section that the committee agreed would suffer the increase or the loss. So that's how we handled CDBG. And in the NSP3 funding, Chris, if you want me to answer that question, we received $1.2 million in Neighborhood Stabilization Program funding from HUD, and that's been in place for not quite 2 years now, and we have accounted for 75% of the funding for that has been spent. And we promised HUD that we would achieve about 10 homes. We're purchase, rehab, and resell foreclosed homes. And so right now we're about at 8 homes and 75% spent, like I said. So that program has been extremely successful. One of our partners is very close to have finished spending all of their funding, which is Habitat for Humanity. They received 50% of the grant. And the other partner was Chicanas por la Casa. And they are about 75% spent on theirs. And in fact, this week or last week, we closed on our first sale with CPLC. So we're starting to see program income come in, and that'll allow us to do even more houses than we had anticipated.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Edwards.
Chris, I just had one question for you on the Neighborhood Pride Program. Are we starting to expand that to the north, or what are the boundaries that we're concentrating on now? You know, as communities, neighborhoods to the north are starting to age, are we recognizing the need to start to move north as well?
Councilmember Edwards, we have programmed the ability to do 5 or 6 projects per year, and a project is one event out in the neighborhood. And so what we developed last year, you'll recall a couple of years ago, we spent 2 years in the area at 83rd and Butler. And so over the last year, we developed a more data-driven process in terms of how we analyze neighborhoods that might be candidates for our Neighborhood Pride program. And they include things like the evidence of foreclosure. They could be code enforcement requirement, code enforcement, age of the housing stock. They might be 1-story versus 2-story. Our volunteers can't work on 2-story homes. So there's a number of variables we look, and when we did the data-driven process for the first time over the last year, that pointed us to the 75th and Brown neighborhood. So now that we will conclude that last project this weekend, we will very soon begin to analyze, the next candidate neighborhoods. But I have heard interest in us exploring to the extent that there is a need in the central and northern ports. And so maybe we might have to evaluate our data again to, once we understand where we're going to go.
Mr. Ames?
Yes, I'd like to talk a little bit further about neighborhood coordinator or human services coordinator. Do you have two different names here? You're not clear what this person is going to do?
The title we've put in the budget is the human services coordinator. That's the working title we have right now.
But on 602, we have neighborhood coordinator. That's a new position also?
Oh, that's a different position.
Oh, okay.
602. Wait, could you, on page 602?
602.
Oh, expenditures by division, correct.
Yeah.
It's
I only see one
misnamed. It's neighborhood
here.
revitalization. It's a typo.
Excuse me?
The division is called neighborhood revitalization, so it's a typo.
Yeah. Councilmember Ames, on page 602, where it says neighborhood coordination, that's the name of the division that's actually neighborhood revitalization.
Correct. Right.
The human services coordinator is a position that you see.
Within that?
Correct.
Yes, within that division.
That's right.
Okay. And what will this person be doing beyond the 3.08 already in the neighborhood coordination and I guess the community block grant? And that's 0.92 FTEs. And community development administration also. Aren't those, are they going to work together or?
Councilmember Ames, so you're looking at page 603 in terms of the positions in that division. The reason it's 3.08 is 3.08 is general funded. The 0.92 of our 4 positions is funded out of the community development block grant. And so the human services coordinator would be part of that division.
Okay. And what, I guess maybe a different way to ask it, what additionally will this person be doing then?
Additionally,
that isn't already being done, because
I think
we have we have the not-for-profit grants, and that's the way we handle our social services, and they do good work for us. And
sure, go ahead.
Is this on?
Good. Well, this position is still in the process of developing a JDQ and a job description and all those kinds of things. But I think the nut of the conversation here is goes to social services and services we've directed to low and moderate and very low income folks. And as our city is growing and aging, in both in our demographic and in our housing stock, we're seeing different types of needs and different types of senior citizen type needs, as well as youth programs and other programs. And with the social services, Ron, we're thinking money management, Alzheimer's, medical services, Social Security benefits, fair housing, and how we refer and get people to our partners who provide those services. So when Councilmember Rivera asked the question, will this grow? Well, the thought is not to grow our staffing level, but to grow our collaborations and our partnerships with other agencies that provide services and get these out to more populations within our city. most of the services we have been providing in this arena have truly been in the southern portion of the city because those are the qualifying residential areas. But there's a great demand for other types of services in that definition throughout the city. So that's the concept. And to leverage those partnerships that are existing in the region, like Chris said, it could include MAG. They have a coalition to look at this, West Valley Human Alliances, DES, and various other human service organizations that we simply can't get to now because we don't have that kind of position level. Everything is allocated currently to administer our CDBG, home, NSP3, Neighborhood Pride, and those basic nonprofit organizations we've been working with in the past.
And we had an additional workload, but in terms of the housing authority, we turned that over to the county. So we don't have that responsibility now.
Yeah, Councilor Ames, that's correct. The housing authority transfer is almost finalized.
Mayor and Council, one other item I guess I wanted to mention in addition to Mr. Ludin's comments is a lot of this also is just serving as a clearinghouse for Peoria residents that are in need of social services. And as the city continues to mature, we're seeing that need there. At the same time, what we have seen is actually a drop in some of the federal assistance that we had in that area. For example, the community action program that was placed out at the community center just north of here no longer has a Peoria presence at this point in time. So what we had a concern as well is that we had the ability as Peoria continues to grow and sees the needs that we do have a resource for our residents to help channel them to the right areas.
Yeah. Well, we actually spend money with a number of the not-for-profits to do that work for us. So this seems like it may be a duplication.
Well, let me take a little bit different tack, Councilmember Ames. It's not designed to be a duplication. It's designed to help coordinate the activities of the social service agencies within the city to better allow our citizens to contact those agencies that really need support. What we've identified as an area that we're seeing growth in terms of the needs of our population is in getting to sometimes the right resources. So it's a position that will help citizens get to those resources that they need, and also help pull the different entities together in the region that already supply services directly to the citizens. So it won't be in any way competitive with or duplicative of the existing services, but it'll be a way to help us assure that there's a coordination function occurring.
Well, some of those HOAs do that. That is their service, to coordinate.
There are certainly coordination functions within some of the social service agencies, but we also see a number of citizens that come directly to the city. And no matter how we might advertise what the city does and doesn't do, citizens still expect that we can help them get to the resources they need. And I think this is a position that will assist citizens in doing that. And I think there's just contextually stepping back from the position, there's a couple of things at play in the broad community that are affecting this. One is that the city is maturing. We're becoming a more mature city. And typically in older, more mature cities, you do have a function within the city that serves the citizens when they're trying to get to the social service agencies or other governmental agencies that they need to get in contact with to get the support. Now, I'm not predicting or projecting that it's going to grow quickly. I don't believe that's the case. We've been good at checking the growth of all of our positions, but I think that this is something that we've seen a need going forward into the future. Secondly, and I think Jeff touched on this, we're also seeing some shifts in what other governmental agencies do. The state and federal level of resources that come to cities has been changing, and fewer resources are available in some of these areas as well. And so that leaves citizens sometimes wondering how to access services. So in a nutshell, that's what this is about.
Mr. Patel.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, this is a position that has been very important to me for the last several years, and I want to thank the deputies and you, Carl, for bringing this forward so quickly. This has been put on our council goals, and again, as we mature as a city, I think this is an excellent resource that we will be able to provide to our citizens, not necessarily the ones that we dole out money to, but to allow those citizens to come to our city, and then we could tell them where they can go get services. So as this position would move forward, I would hope that they're going to be doing a lot of outreach. They're going to be doing, I don't see this position as sitting behind a desk. This is a position that's going to be doing outreach, health fairs. They're going to be doing workshops for people, even things like Social Security or those who might have Alzheimer's or need respite care, those types of things, hosting events. So if this gets approved, then what I'd like to see, Chris, is perhaps this budget. You weren't privy to a lot of the conversations that were going on when you put this budget together, and the position description has evolved since this time, as Susan alluded to. So I would hope that this $84,000 it really doesn't leave enough money, in my opinion, to do all the things that this position is going to need to do early on to make this program successful. So I would hope that we would be able to put more money into this budget so that we can do things like get brochures out and get a person out there and rent rooms if we have to, or different spaces. So hopefully we can kind of revamp this a little bit. I hope that there's not a confusion around with this. This is actually something you brought forward in the when we had our council goal meeting, and I sort of seconded it with you that this was something where we wanted the city to go. So I kind of tagged along on what your thought process was. So I think your confusion might be that the not-for-profit people, the people we give money to, are the people that are the organizations that help the people that we want them to help, and that's true, except those organizations go to the people, and we don't tell the people to go to the organizations. That's the issue.
But some of them actually, their objective is to direct people to the right.
Some of them, but not a lot of them. There's so many different areas now that we're looking at in terms of types of services. We're maturing again as a city. We need to do the things necessary to make this something that our citizens can really depend on. I'm going to speak for when I was here 4 years ago. I would get literally hundreds of calls for services. People didn't know where to go. People would be hanging out in the lobbies. City manager would call and ask me to try to help. We didn't have any way of doing that. We still don't have any way of doing that. And so now this position would be able to at least get those efforts, make those efforts to get those citizens that need the services to the correct not-for-profit or social service agency to help them. That's really what this position is.
Mr. Rivera.
Okay. Susan, is there a human, and you could provide a short response to this, a human services need in Peoria?
Human services need
Yes.
in Peoria?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I believe there is.
Okay. And you mentioned that we're still going through the process of developing the JDQ and the job description and so forth. I briefly worked for the city of Phoenix, and I had interaction with their human services department. I completely respect if somebody says that's Phoenix, but there is some similarities, and I think it's essential that the person that we hire is unique to that position, and that person is bilingual. I think that enhances the position a lot more.
Yes, thank you for that. I also see the integration and evolving of the CPLC, services that model to help with that. And as you know, I've been working towards that for the past couple years. So I would like to see that integrated into the model.
Yeah, and
Mr. Leone.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, on this neighborhood pride, what John was talking about, how do you select the areas? Do you go down there and just check all the areas out, or how do you select them? I know about 4 years ago you did something in my district, Tier 4 or 5. So I'm just wondering, how do you select them?
Councilor Leone, we developed a new process about a year ago, and it's not just looking at the data, but it's also taking key personnel that are involved in right-of-way maintenance or out in the field quite a bit. We'll go look at neighborhoods as well, in addition to the data that we analyze. Now, the data, we're trying to use the data to point us to locations, and as I mentioned, the purpose of the program is to stem the decline that we might see in our neighborhoods. And so sometimes that's represented by, could be high incidence of code enforcement action. It could be the incidence of foreclosure. You've got a area in transition in a neighborhood. It could be, the age of the housing stock. You start to see, walls and homes perhaps starting to look in disrepair. So it's a number of things that we'll look at that are in data. But once we selected candidate neighborhoods, we'll go out with key staff to look at those neighborhoods and see if they make sense, because part of it is we want to have a sustained impact over a year, and we want to have the ability to divide up an area. The area has to be of a certain size that we can do 5 projects over the course of that year.
Do you, after so many years, do you go back to the same neighborhood?
That's a great question. In fact, one of the data criterion that we use is, have we gone to this neighborhood within the last 10 years? So we'll look at that as well. So we'll try to move that around to different areas. So we'll look at the last time we might have worked in that area.
Now, the other question I have, and I've asked it a couple of times, and I really didn't get a correct answer. Do you do mobile homes?
In mobile home neighborhoods?
Yeah.
We look at any neighborhoods that might meet the qualifying criteria. And they could include mobile communities.
I heard that you don't go into mobile homes and do that.
I don't believe that we take those out of the calculation. I think we look at a variety of criteria. So. Right.
But we look at the city, or at the areas that we look at, they don't fall out of the equation automatically.
Now that neighborhood grant, that $150,000, that's a good program. I like it. And my question is that, do we spend the whole, I know we spend the whole 100,000, but could we put more in it? Would you be able to do more if you put more in it?
With the neighborhood grants, I think every year traditionally we get more requests for money than we have available. So that's a question for the council. It used to be 100,000, and I believe the council
I remember that. Then
3 years ago, right?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Mr. Ames.
Yeah, if I could finish here on the human coordinator. I hope this isn't a position where people call in and that person tells them to go here or go there. It needs to go quite a bit beyond that. And at the workshop, I talked about someone like Benavia, who does a lot of different services, having access to our community center so people could drop in there. That's what I brought up. I didn't bring up, maybe this morphed into having a person to coordinate things such as that.
Benavia would certainly be a partner and a collaborator along with several other social service agencies I mentioned. They would augment our services. That's along with all the other providers, Ron. That's what we're thinking.
Thank you.
Would you like to bring this back in reconciliation and have them develop the job description in the interim?
I think that would be a good idea so we can be clearer about what this position is.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you incorporate my suggestion?
About the bilingual?
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, if they could speak Hindi, that would be good.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Thank you very much. We're going to take a 10-minute break. It's about 10 after by that clock. We'll resume about 25 after? 25?
I want to see what's for dinner.